Why do narcissists waste so much time and energy at playing these mind games, constantly using people? Why can't they just settle with one person and just be true to the relationship? Why do they have to make it so difficult when it can be so easy? Well, for you to think in these terms, it's easy because you are a non-narcissist. Your priorities are different. What matters for you is different. But for a narcissist, it is irrelevant. They focus on something else because they value something else. And that is what we are going to talk about in today's episode. Hi, I am Danish, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional, and this episode is going to be all about understanding knowing the 5 reasons why narcissists cannot sustain and maintain relationships. Before we get to the topic and start exploring it, please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you're watching this video on YouTube, and make sure that you press the bell icon to stay updated with everything latest that I post over here. Reason number 1, they thrive on conflict and cannot stand stability. You need to understand that the narcissist's inner world is filled with chaos and instability. They carry a lot of trauma that they never take responsibility to address. Therefore, they have to keep it suppressed at all times, which means that their internal frequency, the frequency of their inner world, has to match the frequency of their outer world. They have to make sure that if there is chaos within, the chaos has to be without, which is why there's always something going on in the narcissist's life, and they always create some kind of chaos. There's always something that they would blame you for, belittle you for. There is always something that they would point out as flaws, something that you need to improve. There's always something wrong. They can't be still. They can't be with stability, because if they were, the inner frequency would take over and they would be forced to sit with the shit that they have ignored for years. And guess what? If they were to do it, it would annihilate and destroy the narcissist's false sense of self, which essentially is death to a narcissist's ego. Reason number 2, they are emotional vampires and prey on others to emotionally regulate themselves. A narcissist's self-agency is missing. They do not have true emotional centers. They are completely disconnected from who they are, because they have killed their true self a long time ago and have sacrificed it at the altar of their false self. So they have created this false sense of identity, which can be only maintained and sustained and kept alive by keeping other people under their control, by getting supply from other people, by influencing other people. So they need you to give them supply. They need you to emotionally regulate themselves. They need you to be the receiver of all of the projections, all of the flaws, all of the insecurities that they cannot accept in themselves. And guess what? When you are with a partner who is constantly projecting their shadow on you, who is constantly belittling you, who is constantly abusing you, who is constantly putting you down, who is feeding at you emotionally, who is trying to deal with their own unresolved stuff at your expense, you can't live with them, you can't be with them. You can survive around them, but being with them is extremely exhausting. And it gets to a point where you can't take it anymore. And you just decide to cut it off. You just decide to stop this source, this vacuum that just is sucking the life energy out of you. Number 3, they want maximum gain with minimal efforts. A narcissist is a very self-absorbed individual. It's all about them and their needs. They don't care about the impact their self-absorbedness has on others. As long as it serves them, they will just keep doing the same thing, no matter what it does to you, how it impacts you or others. When you are with the person who just keeps taking and taking, who just uses you as a housemaid, as the sole earner, sole provider, as the cook, as the object to gain sexual pleasure from, how long would you keep giving, and how long would you keep just taking this abusive treatment? How long would you keep surviving this one-sided relationship where everything is so transactional. How long would you just keep getting these resources from within you to just give to the narcissist? Because after all, you are a human being who is limited in their capacity. A time comes when you can't give anymore, and that is when you are tortured further by the narcissist for not giving and for not serving their ego the way you did quite early, or the way you were used to doing, the way they had programmed you to doing. So that is also one of the reasons why the relationship is not sustainable, because it is just about them. This whole relationship and the concept of it and the concept of love is all about getting their needs met at the expense of someone else's needs. Before we move to the number 4, I'm just curious to know, how did the narcissist use you in the relationship? What was your end point? What was the straw that broke the camel's back? Drop your experiences in the comments below. Number 4, they are hypersensitive to anything and almost everything. Everything that comes out of your mouth that you say related to them or to anything else sets them off, and it triggers them. And that creates a state of hypervigilance in you, because you don't know what would set them off, what would trigger them into reacting, into raging, into abusing you. And when you are with a person who is so unpredictable, how would you be able to feel safe? And when you can't feel the basic thing, which is safety, you won't be able to connect. And if you are not able to connect, how would you be able to trust your partner? So the basic foundation is weak. The basic elements that make this foundation are missing. Therefore, the relationship in itself is quite hollow and quite weak. It's just built on nothing. Ultimately, it would collapse. That's why their whole construct of the relationship is doomed to collapse, and it's not sustainable. The last and the final one, they take responsibility for nothing and believe their own lies. They think that you owe them the world. You owe them every single thing that they need in their life, emotionally or otherwise. Your existence, your creation happened only for one reason, and that is to serve the narcissist's ego. I am pointing out their entitlement and grandiosity. They feel entitled. They feel that it is their right to treat you as a doormat, and they just justify it in their head. They believe their own lies, which makes them very dangerous to deal with. Because if someone justifies their abusive treatment towards you, believes the lies that they tell you and that they tell themselves, and thinks and assumes that their lies are the truth, how would you be able to reason with such a person? And if they blame shift, if they deflect, if they project, if they make everything your fault, how would you be able to deal with a person who just cannot look within? How would you be able to deal with a person who just acts like a mirror but never a window? Because if you were to look through a window, you can see the other side. But if you were to look at a mirror, you just see yourself. The same thing is happening with the narcissist. Whenever you try to give them any feedback, or whenever you try to hold them accountable or responsible, all you get is you get a reflection back. You don't see anything. You don't see anyone. They make it, they twist it, and just kind of project it on you and make it your problem, your issue. Everyone else is responsible except them. And they believe it, deeply believe it. So in the long term, you cannot be with a person who just makes everyone to be the reason behind the issues that are going on in their life or in others' life who are connected with them. Ultimately, this is going to break unless there is a factor that just holds the narcissist and the victim together, a factor that is beyond the victim's control to take care of. But ultimately, this construct is destroyed and you leave the relationship because there is nothing to connect with. I hope today's episode was insightful and you understood why it wasn't your fault and why the relationship didn't last, because it was their personality that couldn't sustain it. I will talk with you very soon in the next one. Till then, let the healing begin.